Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome to Satsang. Is this too bright? Yeah, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Oh, that's better. That's good. So glad to be here with you all on this chilly, cloudy afternoon where I am. I'm, as always, on Satsang, I want to invite you all to just put aside everything, absolutely everything. The past, the future, the present, your ideas, your beliefs, your assumptions, every idea you have about yourself, about others, about the world. Just see how much you can just let go of, how much you can just be without. And see if you can find that which you simply cannot dispose of, that you cannot set aside. There's something that can not be, it just can't go away. Because if it was to go away, you would be gone. The mission here is always to be aware of who you are without anything additional added. Kind of the I am without filling in the blank of any kind afterwards. I am male, I am female, I am old, I am young, I am smart, I am not so smart, I'm pretty, I'm ugly, I'm overweight, I'm underweight, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Asian. Just put all of it aside. No, nothing after the I am. And just see if you can be with the sense of being without it mixing up with anything at all. Just pure being, your pure existence. You, just you. And notice what that is. Just notice it. I mean, this is really the simpleness, the simplicity of the direct path, the direct approach to spiritual awakening. Because what we're all after is to know who we are. It doesn't seem that way, right? We think we're after, wealth, freedom, security, opportunity, fun, creativity. All of those things are great. All of those things are a part of the package. But they all grow out of knowing deeply within your heart who you actually are. That is, who you are without anything extra added. Nothing needing to be acquired from the world outside. Just whatever needs to be acquired can't be original equipment, right? It's an aftermarket thing. So, and of course, we do need to have fun. We need to have creativity. We need to have, freedom of action. We need to have opportunity. All of that we need to have. But that's not the inquiry here. It's not, do we need these things? Yes, of course. Are they who you are? Are you not who you are, whether you have those things or not? This is the inquiry. I take away everything. I don't mix myself up with anything extra. It's not a relationship to something else. It's not in relationship to something else. It's not how I happen to be when I'm with, my friends or my family or my lover or whatever, right? Just you. That is satsang. The communion with the truth of your own being. Hello, Eva from Poland. Glad to be Satsang, I'm so glad you're here, Eva. Anne says, good to be back with you. Good to be here. Anne, glad to have you. Saab in Paris, here for some deep Sunday evening vibes to set me up for the coming week. Wonderful. I think you've come to the right place. That's what we're here for. Meryl is saying hi from Queensland. Meryl, a long-term friend and student of mine. Ishta, happy emoji to everyone. Hello, Ishta. Anne would like just be without the thoughts and feelings. Would like just be without the thoughts and feelings. Well, that's a really good question, because when I bring people's attention to that which is there, right? There's kind of this idea, and it's a very popular idea in meditation and spiritual practices, that somehow you have to get rid of the mind, you have to get rid of the feelings, you have to get rid of the thoughts. They're supposed to go quiet. But they don't have to. Whether the thoughts are there or not, are you not who you are? The key is not trying to get rid of thoughts, which is really a waste of time. You can no more get rid of thoughts than you can stop the sun from shining or the wind from blowing, and you wouldn't want to. All you need to do, the only thing you need to do, is not mix yourself up with them. Don't go along with the narrative that the mind is, that the habit of thought is producing. There's no need to. Just notice that thoughts come and go, and you don't. Boom. You are no longer trapped in the mind field, the minefield of the mind of the mind. You're no longer trapped in a particular way of thinking or set of beliefs. You simply are. You simply are. And you are aware of thoughts, but you're not a thought. And you're aware of feelings, but you're not a feeling. You're aware of sensations, but you're not the sensations. And then they don't matter. They're not important. Whether they're there or not does not matter, because it doesn't affect who you are. It doesn't affect the truth of you. The idea is to simply begin to see ourselves without the context of thoughts and feelings, without all of the extra stuff. Pure you, the pure original you. The one that was there before any conditioning happened, before any thought arose, even before this body arose. That may be a stretch for some of you. If it is, forget about it. Don't worry. It's not important. We can just work right in with the context we do know, and that is, you can find yourself without resorting to thought, can't you? There's a sense of your own existence, right? That's not a thought, is it? The sense of your own existence. It's not a thought. It's a direct experience, and we all have it. We've misinterpreted it. We've let our ideas about what that is color and influence our experience. We've believed this idea of who we are that was really installed in the mind. It's a cultural phenomena. It's part of the way things work. But it isn't an absolute truth. And you can very simply see thoughts come and go, beliefs come and go. Even some of the things that maybe, at one point you really believed them really, really strong, gone. They're not here anymore. So anytime you thought, oh, this is what I was, this is what I am, it's gone, isn't it? Who'd you think you were when you were 15 years old, when you were 30 years old, if you made it to 30 yet? That's a long time ago for me. And you can see that there's this thing constantly changing, but there's something that isn't changing. There's something that is there. And it's not a thought, and it's not a feeling, and it's not a sensation. It's much more solid than that. This is yourself. This must be yourself, because if you take everything away, until there's nothing left but the sense of being, well, that sense of being must be you, because you can't take you away, and you can't take it away. You cannot stop existing. You cannot stop that. Nor did you start it. It doesn't really have a beginning or an end. Ivailo, hi from Bulgaria. Hello to you. Sophie, hello, lovely to be here. Sophie from England. Hello. Hello, Sophie from England. Chrissy, hi, lovely to be here again from New Zealand. And for all the reminders, good to have you here, Chrissy. So good. Puppy, GP live stream, best Sunday time ever. Yay. For me too. Katie, hi again from London. Liz says hello from New Jersey. Marlene says hi, G. And I think, Marlene, you're in Texas, aren't you? So, bring your questions. Let's explore what I've been talking about here. As far as I'm concerned, it is the most important thing that a person should ponder, that should be explored and should be investigated. One of the things I love about Sunday is that I don't do a lot of work on Sunday unless there's something coming up and I have to, and I've gotten behind. I spend Sunday pondering, just marinating in this, just living in this, right? Now that it implies a duality, right? That there's me and then there's it, and I'm living in it. It's really just kind of just soaking up the fullness and the completeness and the wholeness of my own being, which, by the way, is the same as your own being. Our own being. We can speak of it in first person, we can speak of it in third person. Doesn't really matter. There's just the sense of I am is all there is to this. We've just continually overlooked it. We go walking right past it every single time. We hear spiritual stories about the great, the great experiences that people have had. Suddenly the heavens parting and seeing colors and all of that sort of stuff. But you know what? None of that is it. None of that is actually it. Yes, when there's a realization of who you actually are, and there's a sense of freedom that wells up. But that sense that you're experiencing is an experience, and it will come and go. But you don't come and go. The reality of your being is this pure, undiluted presence, and nothing else. Seeking Truth says, how does one speak from consciousness? I heard Mooji say, speak from consciousness and not from the person. It seems confusing. Okay, I will try to clarify it. It is always consciousness that animates everything, right? That which is animating this body, that is forming words, that is moving his hands, right? The agent, the element, the spirit of that which is animating is consciousness, or you could call it spirit, or you could call it love, or you could call it God. It doesn't matter what you call it, but that's always what's animating. Now, if you believe that you are something other than pure consciousness, that you are a person, that you are limited to this body, that you are finite, that you are little more than your memories and associations, that you are a complex of atoms and molecules that somehow became self-aware. Right? Any kind of picture you draw of yourself that is a form, you're going to animate that form and give it a life. It's gonna feel and act as if it's really you. You have simply bound yourself, compressed yourself within a sphere, a little bubble of belief, and believed it literally into existence. Now you are always the infinite consciousness. That is always what you are. That will never change. That can never go away. that is what you are. But if you believe yourself to be the person, and the person is nothing more than believing yourself to be this finite set of memories and associations and history and events and all sorts of stuff. If you believe that to be who you are, you will speak that way as if it were true. You will announce yourself as if it were true, and you will experience life as if it were true. That's what Mooji means that when he says speaking from the person. You're speaking from your consciousness. You're always consciousness, but consciousness identified with the body and the form and the history and all of that, that is the person. So if I'm speaking as if I am the person, I'm just this, I'm just this guy living in Seattle and doing stuff like that, then I am speaking from the person. But if I'm aware of the person, that is, that all of the things that make up my particular human life, but I'm not identified with them, I am then speaking from consciousness. Or rather, I am consciousness speaking. Right? There's not consciousness and then me identified with this or identified with that, right? Identified with as a person or identified with as consciousness. Speaking from consciousness is a step towards just speaking. Oh, I actually am the self. Even if there's doubts in your mind, even if there's some resistance to that inside of you, to actually speak from that, at least to yourself. Don't go running out into the world. I'm the I am. You should call me the I am. Don't do that. There's plenty of people doing that. We don't need any more of those. Just to yourself. Just a constant reminder that this is who I am. But that's a step along the way. To actually see that it is always consciousness that speaks. It's always awareness that is aware, that is what you are. Now you'll find yourself always speaking as that, because there isn't anything else to be. It's what you are. And you find that the whole dream of identification with the body has been just that, a dream. You fell asleep in New York and dreamed you were somebody else wandering the streets of Paris, having a really good time. Something inside was going, even had a different name, right? Something inside's going, wait a minute, something's wrong with this picture. Something's off here. And then you wake up and you realize that you're not that person walking through that place. And you never were. It was simply a subjective state of mind and the identification that went with it. Does that answer your question, Seeking Truth? Does that remove the confusion about it? Right? When you are identified as the person, consciousness is speaking as if it were the person, and it's really easy to hear. And of course, somebody like Mooji hears the subtlest little indication of it. It's very easy to hear. But when you are speaking from consciousness, you're actually speaking as yourself, as your true being. And you can hear the difference. You can sense the difference when somebody is speaking from the person and when somebody is speaking from consciousness. You could also say speaking from the heart. That's what it means to speak from the heart. It's simply speaking from that place that is not mixed up with anything. As I was saying right at the beginning, we're We're not going to mix anything up with that sense of I am. We're just going to be the pure I am. That's pure consciousness. That's pure love. That's pure heart. It's got a thousand names, but it's all referring to the same wondrous thing, and that thing is you. Before I am says, hi G, Catherine from Ireland here. Hi Catherine. Sophie, could you speak more about the subtlety of the shift from the content of self to being as moment to moment? I always want to bring people back to the absolute truth, which is you are already the self. You have simply been entertaining a belief that you are not. And that belief is based on mistaking the content of consciousness for the reality of your being. In other words, this body and the events of my life are the content of consciousness. Clearly, right? They're coming and going, and I'm aware of those. But that of all of that. Now, if I identify myself as one of the objects in the content, I enter into it, I become one with it, and now there's a little me in this big universe. The shift that you're referring to is the shifting of the attention back to that which is aware of the content and recognizing that, of course, you've been in that position the whole time. You mistook the content for yourself. And this whole process is bringing that sense of I am, that sense of self, back into where it's actually been sitting the whole time, the place from which all the content has been viewed, including the sense of identification with the content. You see that too has been being viewed from this place. And in fact, pure consciousness has never even been identified with what it's been experiencing. So it can be very, very subtle. The levels at which we identify are very, very subtle. I mean, even when you say, I'm identifying with this, or I can identify with consciousness, you can see it's very subtly we have created a sense of self that is not consciousness, something else that is aware of consciousness. And I have to ask, well, what's that? If it's something other than consciousness, then it's not conscious. If it's something other than awareness, it's not aware. So you can't have something that's not aware of awareness. So we're left with only one reasonable way of looking at this, and that is I am consciousness. I am the awareness. I've always been that, and everything has been playing out in front of that, including the imaginary sense of identification with a form. Does that clear it up for you? Where is it? Where'd you go? Yes, does that clear it up for you, Sophie? If not, just bring it up again. Que maravilha. Greetings from Brazil. Greetings to you. Wonderful. I've been to Brazil a couple of times. What a beautiful country. Liz Love. I find it challenging to practice when I am frustrated with someone I'm in a relationship with. How can I stop myself from spiraling into a reaction of anger? Boy, there's a lot of different ways. One way is to just love, especially in relationship. You know, I remember your love for them. Right? And you know, the very fact that you see yourself spiraling into anger, and you don't want to do that anymore, is sign of awakening, right? Because otherwise, there's plenty of people who get, excuse me, there's plenty of people get also angry about all sorts of stuff, right? And don't think anything of it. I'm just angry. But something inside of you has woken up to say, this really isn't helpful. It doesn't help the relationship. It doesn't help me. It feels unpleasant. It causes damage. It can take sometimes days, sometimes even longer. Sometimes a fit of anger can destroy a relationship. So coming to this place where you see that, this is not me. This is not who I am. This is not what I aspire to. Then you realize that that pattern of reaction called anger is a learned behavior. If you dug deeply enough into it, you'll find that anger is always the body preparing to defend itself. And the more powerless you feel, the more vulnerable you feel, the stronger that anger is going to be, because it's trying to fight off a threat. Now become aware of that. Something in the environment triggered that anger. Something he did. Well, or she did, whichever. Something happened, and you became very personal about it. You took it personally. It's me. I shouldn't be that. Why did he do that? That was terrible. And off you go. I would just stop there. Take a breath. Remember the love, right? And let the anger move through the system without acting it out. It's okay if you feel it. I know it's crappy. It sucks to feel it. But to just feel it and not give it expression allows that energy to move through the system. You're not suppressing the anger. You're simply not expressing it. And then when that has dissipated, as it will, because anger and fear are just two normal reactions within the system when you feel threatened. And so if you don't suppress it, but you don't act it out, that energy will eventually discharge. And then what happens is space opens up to find out, well, what really happened? And did he say something that, and you could say, it hurts when you say that. Right? And I hope you don't really feel that way. And you can have a loving, tender, progressive, and nurturing relationship, nurturing conversation at that point. So the awareness of the anger simply needs to deepen, right? And go from I don't want to be angry anymore, which is suppression and trying to fight it, to there's anger moving in me. And I'm going to let it move, but I'm not going to go off, because it's going to want me to go off and start, defending or attacking, because that's what anger can do. Anger is fear is what we feel when we're going to run. Anger is what we feel when we're going to fight. So you're basically in fighting stance when you're being angry. And I don't think you really want to beat him up. I'm pretty sure you don't really want that to be there. So at this point, you simply become aware of it, more deeply aware of it, and let that awareness and still allow it to be there. This is how we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of these deep wounds that we have, of these deep patterns that we have, and can finally release them. You can't suppress them, but you can't express them. So you are really sitting right in the middle, where you have to simply allow it to be there. Because if you express the anger, you will only express the vulnerability and the defensiveness. You will not actually express yourself. It will be the anger speaking. Right? So let it move through you. And when it has, you'll either find that what it reacted to was insignificant and you let it go permanently, Or you find, well, there was something, and we need to actually be honest and bring that up and have the conversation. We need to clear this between us so we can know greater intimacy. And little by little, what will happen is you simply don't get angry. I cannot remember the last time I got angry. I mean, if it comes up, sometimes our government does stupid stuff, and I can feel this like, oh my God, kind of thing. But there's no malice. There's nothing. It's just, the energy can just move through it to the point where you are so open and so transparent and so malleable that it doesn't even come. There is no defensive posture to be in. There's nothing reacting any longer. Does that help? Liz? Oh, one thing I wanted to say about that. I find it challenging to practice when I am frustrated with somebody in a relationship with. What I would say to that is, wonderful. I hope you have, I hope you get more of that. We don't want, if you really want to exercise your spiritual muscles, you don't just sit in a cave staring at a wall all day. You get out there and you interact. You interact with each other. Those interactions are what trigger this stuff, and that's where we really become free. The Zen master Swan Song used to refer to it, the Sangha and the group of people who were seekers, seeking the truth. He said that, you can wash one potato at a time, or you can throw all the potatoes in a pot and boil them, and they'll get clean by bumping up against each other. Go ahead, bring on the conflict, bring on the problems, bring it on, because that's how it deepens. I don't want this just to be a pretty rose path. You don't grow it all. I want total freedom. I want to be the spiritual master, not just somebody who looks really good because life is going so good now that that nothing inside them is being triggered. And there's plenty of people out there. I mean, hey, that's pretty much what most of the spirituality and self-help stuff promises, right? Your life's going to be so good. You don't have to worry about any of this anymore. It's like, no. If I want to build muscle, as soon as I can lift this weight, I add more weight and I do some more. Does that answer it for you, Liz? Seeking Truth says, thanks a lot, GP. These satsangs help me a lot. Wonderful. I'm glad. And I want you to go beyond being helped. I want you to go beyond the need for help. I want you to go beyond, right? Don't just be content with being a seeker that's getting answers. Go beyond the seeker. You are the ultimate answer. And the seeker, it's a very important place in our spiritual development. We all go through it. But it itself is simply another sense of identity. If I'm a seeker, then I'm not it because I'm seeking something. So who are you? Who are you? And isn't even the seeking the most noble of spiritual endeavors? Isn't that too being perceived by something even more subtle? Something that isn't seeking. Something that doesn't need to seek anything. That is what I want to bring your attention to. Ava says, concerning speaking from consciousness, from where I tell, great to be at satsang now. As I told in the beginning, I felt it from my heart. Yes, you're in the presence of truth, right? Not me personally, but the present. That's what's on offer here. That's what we sell. That's all you get here, right? You want some other stuff? There's plenty. There's how many billions of hours of YouTube videos are up there? But you've chosen to come here. You've chosen truth. You've chosen to explore the truth of you. not true ideas being handed to you, but a direct realization that the truth you're seeking is your very nature. And yes, you can feel it, the truth of it. You can feel the heart in it. It isn't just a thought. I get the idea that I am that. There's a felt sense that, it's, yes, I do feel that love. I do feel that gratitude. I do feel great to be here in the presence of my own true being. Yes. But somehow I feel also through the body. Could you please comment about this? Well, there's nothing wrong with the body. Of course you're going to feel through the body, but the body's not what you are. You're going to feel the sensations of the body. Why not? They're nice, right? If you've ever been in a romantic relationship, it's nice. Nice having a body to do that with. It's part of the experience. It's just not who you are. That's it. You know, we feel all sorts of things, and we feel them as the body. There's actually more to it than that. It's more than just a body, but it's okay to just go with that. Yes, heartfelt, right? We say, "Oh, my heart," and we point it. You know, it's not really here. You know, the true heart is everywhere. It has no boundaries, but we feel it. When I'm happy, what is it? I feel giddy. I feel this. When I'm in love, I feel it. Yes. All of that is the sweetness of experience. That's consciousness experiencing itself. But it's not what you are. What you are is the one that is aware of all of that coming and going and is enjoying every minute of it. It's just wonderful, but it clings to nothing. Because all of this is coming and going, but you are not. You are not those feelings that come and go. Enjoy them. They're wonderful, right? And when they're not so wonderful, when they're grievous, well, just let them be there. You find that there's a joy in that as well. There's an aliveness in that as well. But you are the ultimate experiencer, right? You are not the experience. The experience comes and goes. You don't. So the sense of I am, the sense I am, returns back to its origin rather than just all about the feelings. And a lot of spiritual practices and pretty much all self-help is constantly seeking good feelings, which is great. The whole positive psychology thing. It's great. But nobody can do it. It's insane. Buddha couldn't do it, right? Feelings come and go. It's not a quest for always having blissful thoughts and blissful feelings. It is a realization that no matter what the quality or character of the thought or feeling is, it is simply a transient bubble on the vast ocean of consciousness, which is what you are. What you are isn't necessarily what appears. But if you're not there, what can possibly appear? Does that work for you, Ava? Keep wanting to say Ava because that's how it's spelled, but I know that you pronounce the W's as V's. Moonlight Delight. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, GP. When you refer to the self, do you refer to the absolute where the witness has been annihilated? Yes. Yeah, yes. Because even the sense of being the witness of all of this is something that's perceived, right? Clearly, you can see that. You can, yes, I can see that. I can see the seeking mind. I can see the witnessing mind. I can see all of that. But you cannot be seen. The ultimate perceiver cannot be perceived. You know, the eye cannot see itself because perception always works with subject and object. And so you can't possibly step outside of yourself and look at yourself. You are one. You are yourself. And so the absolute is that recognition of total emptiness, total stillness, and then recognizing that the recognition of that stillness is the stillness. That there's not something recognizing the absolute. It is the absolute recognizing itself. And it is not something that can be put into words. It's a non-phenomenal recognition. That's the term Mooji uses that I think is just right, spot on. It is you don't have to step outside to verify that you exist. There's that sense of existence is there, right? But there's something even subtler that is aware of even the sense of existing. That is pure existence. That is the pure absolute. That is the self. Is that clear? Moonlight? And thank you all for these beautiful questions. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful to see. Catherine from London. Catherine London from Ireland? Different Catherine? I know. Hi, GP. When a question rises from the mind, instead of seeking for an answer, I stay with the question, knowing that I am not the mind. Very good. Somehow the answer reveals itself soon after in one form or another. Simply beautiful. Yes. Yes. Yeah, when a question arises, if you're just present with the question, you have become the awareness of the question, the space in which it arises. And you'll find that you don't have to find an answer, that from the same place that question arose, the answer arises. In fact, whether it's happening inside of you, within the privacy of your own little inner space, or if it's happening here in satsang, it's the same. The question arising and the answer arising are coming from exactly the same place. It is simply truth clarifying itself to itself. It is simply being its clear self. And so, yeah, you don't need to seek an answer as if the answer existed as something independent from you. You simply be in the spirit of the question. This same thing holds true for all of the desires that arise within us. To not go out grabbing to try to fulfill those desires, but to simply be present with them, and they will either fulfill themselves or they will dissipate. Because that's the nature. The desire and the fulfillment of a desire arise from the same place, and it is not a personal mission of yours to do that. You don't have to find the answer. You simply be with the question genuinely. Embrace the question, because these aren't just idle questions, right? Especially the questions in satsang. These are the questions about how do I go infinitely, eternally free? How do I know perpetual happiness? Not ecstasy or bliss, but contentment, peace, stillness, continually. That is worth devoting yourself to. And that's where these questions, the real questions, are arising out of the true self, calling the false sense of self back home, just turning it around and bringing it back to itself. But again, when I use language like that, it sounds like there's two. There's my lower self and my higher self, right? My little s self and my big S self. And there aren't two. But in the process of spiritual growth, as we are maturing, as the seeking is ripening and coming to an end, that kind of language is okay, but eventually you won't even be able to use that kind of language anymore. It just won't make any sense. The idea of a question and an answer being two separate things will just be absurd. The idea that there's me and then there's the truth that I'm seeking as two different things, just the words just don't feel right. They won't feel right anymore. But then, of course, you will use them when you're speaking to those who have not ripened to that point yet. And, I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know, somebody gets it and somebody doesn't. All I do is show up, right? It's not my job to figure all that out. My job is to just show up and speak the truth of my heart in the clearest and most clear ways that I possibly can. So thank you for sharing that with us, with Catherine. That is just phenomenal. That is phenomenal. That is it. You've really stepped into being the awareness rather than seeking it. That's what happened. The question, the answer are all arising in this space, and you are that space. Billy Boy, many hugs from Florida, GP. Any tips for how to deal with sense pleasure addictions? Well, first off, don't make such a big deal out of it, right? Some people have all sorts of addictions of all kinds. It can be shopping, it can be watching TV, it can be checking Facebook, it can be sex, it can be substances. Everybody, even in the spiritual path, there's an addiction to the state of, bliss and happiness, right? So we can't make that big of a deal out of it, because we make a really big deal. Oh, God, I've got to get rid of these things. I mean, it's just, right? At the same time, I can't say, no problem, carry on, right? But we want to use these as an opportunity to deepen our spiritual inquiry. If you do that, then your muscle, the spiritual muscle, will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And the level of your openness and compassion will get stronger and stronger and stronger. I've had plenty of addictions in my life. I know them well. And so I can never condemn anybody for that. As I said, I don't think there's a single stupid mistake that I haven't made. On one hand, that actually makes me a good teacher, because nothing intimidates me and nothing tricks me anymore, right? But it's kind of a big price to pay for that. So I would say, what is it that you're really trying to satisfy? Or what is it that you're really trying to avoid? And so before you go running off to fulfill that with whatever particular thing it is, stop. Slow down. Feel that energy, that yearning energy, that grasping energy. At the root of all of our attachments and addictions and our graspingness is the sense of being the person. It's the egoic mind. Dissatisfaction is the nature of the person. Okay? It's not like the ego finally gets satisfied. It is dissatisfaction itself. So that feeling of grasping that something is missing is the ego. Step back from it. Let that energy move through the system. Okay. It does not define me. I am still the consciousness that is aware of it. It feels really overwhelming, but no story. Just put the whole story about what it is and what it means about me, and because it's really not going to say very nice things about you, right? Especially when you've woken up to the point where it's not comfortable anymore. It's not serving you. It's not doing what it initially did, if it ever did. But in the beginning, there was some kind of a relief there, and now you've kind of got, it's kind of like a tar baby, and you're stuck in the thing that at one point was kind of a relief from you. So, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Go to the sensations themselves. Try to go right into that feeling and stay with it without a story. The mind will say, this is hard. I don't want to do this. You go, that's just what the mind is saying. I mean, it's clearly here. What can be so hard about feeling what's actually already here? Well, it's not hard at all. If it was hard, I wouldn't be feeling it. It's not hard to feel. Okay, so the mind's wrong on that. Okay, got it. Can I be present with this? I get I don't want to. There's this feeling of wanting to get away from it, and of course that wanting to get away from it is what created an addictive pattern in the first place. So don't run away from that underlying feeling. And if an addiction has developed, there'll be many layers to it. Because first, though, it just simply be the desire to get it, right? The thing that you've become attached to, and then little by little, that will lessen, and you'll start getting deeper and deeper into what it was that pushed you in that direction in the first place. This is the way I invite people to explore that. And then if you slip, and if you're done all that, and then you go, smoke your spliff or do whatever it is, the thing, or binge watch TV or something like that, then you don't beat yourself up. Stay aware. Even when you're doing it, stay aware. Stay aware. Be conscious of what you're doing. That consciousness will eventually unseat it, because you have to go unconscious to be able to do it. But if you stay conscious, even though it might be continuing, consciousness is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And eventually you'll find that it was a pattern of energy in the nervous system and not your actual being that was addicted. Believe me, the self has no addictions. It doesn't get wasted. it doesn't run of its charge cards. It doesn't binge watch TV. The self is simply that presence. Merrill adds, what if it's a recurring problem like gambling? It's exactly the same process, right? With a lot of these things, there's an embarrassment about it. It's not just the addiction itself, it's the whole lack of self-love and self-care that go with it. Go for the self-care, go for the self-love, go for forgiveness. There is no, I think St. Paul has said, there's nothing you've done that isn't common to man. There's nothing befallen you that isn't common to us all. And so you can take the teeth out of it and use that as an opportunity to go deeper. What is it that makes this so attractive? What am I really craving? And that will just continue to increase your appetite for freedom, because that is what you're seeking. You are seeking happiness that isn't a cheat. Liz Love says, I like it. I appreciate it. Perfect, Shami. That's one about the relationship. Good. Glad to see that. Be aware. Let it be there and run through me. Thank you. Yes. The same thing is true with an addiction. We're not going to get through this unscathed, right? The spiritual path is not this holy path where you've kind of rid yourself of all the bad behaviors. It isn't that at all, right? That's a moral path. That's an ethical path. That's a religious path. That is not the spiritual path. And the spiritual path will get criticized because of that. Well, you could just, be a pedophile. Somebody actually said that to me. I am so tired of dumb things being said like that. If you're the self and none of this matters, you're going to do terrible things. No, the self has no need to do terrible things. It has no desire to do terrible things. It's walking in the light. The terrible things are always a result of darkness. They're always a result of identification with the false self. All I'm saying is, don't be that. Don't identify with that. Don't go there, because it's a waste of time. So this isn't about how to train yourself to be moral and ethical. It's about discovering the real you that is naturally moral and ethical. As Christ said, I am the fulfillment of the law. Love, the truth of being, fulfills all the moral requirements. You don't have to be governed by threat of punishment anymore. That's what it's meant, to go beyond the law in the Christian tradition, going beyond the law, the New Testament, the New Covenant, the New Agreement, not the laws that I am bound by and I will be judged by, but the flowering of the heart that is good by nature, is moral by nature, is kind and compassionate by nature. The law becomes embodied in the life. So it doesn't break the law, it fulfills it. Is that, perhaps that's a good way of putting it. Anne says, no specific event to blow up the universe and just not be anymore. Allow self move through it as allowing. Any other suggestions? Stop being. What you're actually feeling is the weight and limits and impositions of identifying with the person. Don't identify with the person. You are not the person. You just don't want to be anymore. You don't want to be that anymore. Of course, you never were that, but you believed yourself to be that. So when those feelings come up, recognize that you have just re-identified with the egoic self, because that's what it feels like. The feeling of freedom is what consciousness feels like. The feeling of like, that is the egoic mind. That's how it feels. When you are identified with that, that's how it feels. It should be a sheer indicator that, oh, I've identified with the false self again. I'm not that. Just come right back. You see all those feelings, you allow them to be there in your action. I am not that. I am not something that wants to blow up the universe. I'm not something that doesn't want to be. How can I not want? I am. How can I not be what I am? And I am. So that I don't want to be is simply, oh, I don't want to be that. And then you can begin to recognize that, oh, I'm not that. I never was that. Of course I want to be free of that. I want to be free of the belief that I ever was that, because it feels terrible. Does that help, Anne? Ava says, yes, I've got it. Thank you. Very good. Very, very good. Before I am. Such terrific answers, G. Love how you explained so clearly. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have no idea where these answers come from. I always like to point that out, because we tend to want to personalize our spiritual teachers, people who are speaking truth. Right? We want to see wisdom as if it's some kind of possession. He's very wise, she's very wise. Well, it's not that at all. Wisdom speaks for itself. Truth speaks for itself. And the very same truth that is being voiced here is the same truth that is your being. So it isn't, so the clarity is coming from truth itself, right? And not from a person. And the less you identify yourself with the person, the more of that is going to happen. You will find access to words and ideas and metaphors and stories that you never thought, you never imagined you actually had access to, because you are no longer speaking from the point of view of a limited mortal. That which is speaking is truth itself. That which is asking the question is truth itself. Right? And that's where the clarity is. Because remember, I could be absolutely crystal clear, but if you don't get it, it's not clear. So the clarity isn't just me explaining it clearly. It's you hearing it clearly. It takes both. Can't do one without the other. Can't ride a bike without wheels. Right? Alessandra, hello from Monterey. Hello, Alessandra. So good to have you here. Juan Pedro Cardosa, GP. Can language convey the truth? Yes, of course it can. You know, it's what I do all the time. Can it, is it the truth? No, it is not. Language conveys, it points. It's like art, right? You know, or music, or you know, visual arts, or dance, or any of the arts. They're conveying things, but they're not the actual thing that's being conveyed. But yet, at the same time, there's a unity with them, right? I like to say that the words carry the word, right? The wire is the vehicle through which electricity passes. It's not the electricity, right? And so what you are doing is you're discerning the truth in the words, but that's coming from you. I'm doing my best to articulate it as accurately as possible, and to say it in such a way that I don't allow you much wiggle room, right? I don't allow room for the interpretation, to try to say, no, it's not that, it's not that. Keep going, keep going, keep pointing, keep pointing, keep pointing. But the truth is you. The truth is your being. So what I'm constantly doing is pointing you back to what you're always experiencing, which is your own existence. The truth is not a concept. It is not something that we know. It's something we are. You are truth. The truth is not just an idea. The truth is living being itself. Truth, reality, love, the I amness, beingness, isness, all the same thing. Living truth, right? So, and as such, yes, everything conveys it. Everything expresses it, right? Everything gives it its momentary expression. But the expression is not it. The song is not all there is to music, right? And yet the music, every song embodies music. And if it didn't, it would almost be as if it didn't exist. It would be an unknown. And so words convey, point to the truth, but aren't the truth. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Eli, my buddy Eli. Hello, GP. Welcome, namaste. My question, does human life actually have any value? Is the human body, is a city any more important than an ant colony? It seems to me there's no intrinsic value in anything. Is that wrong? No, it's absolutely correct. There is no intrinsic value in it. It's all the value that we give it. And our confusion about that actually leads us to think that our cities are more important than an anthill. And they're not. They're simply another form that consciousness has taken. Human life, if you see it as just life and stuff and bodies and things, then no, it doesn't have any value at all. But if you see it as the vehicle through which the truth of being expresses itself, now it has enormous value, right? If you look at, you look at, I remember going to the Louvre in Paris and standing in front of the Mona Lisa. And I was entranced. I was probably there for a half an hour. I even walked to the other side because there's rails, right? And there's people going by all the time. And I sat up on top of the rail so I could see over most of the people's heads. So I could just sit and stare at it. There was something there way beyond just the paint and the canvas. It was beyond the brush strokes. There was a spirit in that was impossible to put my finger on. There's a couple of pieces of art. Picasso's Lady in Black had that same effect on me. The Rosetta Stone, when I was with it at the British Museum, had that same kind of effect. There's a few things that happen, a few pieces of music that just like something transcendent has gotten expressed there. So if you look at it, just the canvas, the paint, the brush strokes, the brush that were used, the time, and all of that stuff, there's no inherent value in any of it. But if you look at it as the vehicle, like these words that are giving expression to something that is beyond what can ever be completely expressed, the infinite appearing as a moment, then you see that it has no intrinsic value of its own, but it reflects the infinite value of reality, of the truth, of God, of the greatness of being itself. Does that answer your question for you, Eli? It's it's very subtle. We are really discerning things. If you see a thing disassociated from its source, yeah, there's going to be nothing. It's completely unimportant, and we do that. You know, we send kids off to die in wars. For what? For nothing. Right? They mean nothing to the ones that send them off to war. But when you look at the utter potential of every human being to give expression to the deepest, subtlest, most beautiful aspects of being, then suddenly you realize exactly how valuable it actually is, how unique every single form is. And now it is no longer something that has inherent value. It is the expression of infinite value. I think I said that clearly enough. So that's how you discover it. So you're not wrong, right? When I see a fellow human being suffer, like I got empathy, but also like I know they're just making it up ultimately, and in the next moment they'll be attracted to some other feeling. Yes. If that question made sense. Eli, Jen, not good at typing. It's okay, man. I got it. Yes, it's very true. That somebody will be really in a lot of pain, and you can see quite clearly that their pain is self-created. I see it all the time. The more developed and mature and ripe you get in this, the more you're going to see it, and that's where you just find this enormous compassion, because you could just kind of blow it off and say, "Dude, get over it." And sometimes you do. Sometimes you can say, "Man, get over it. Who cares?" Right? But that can also be very cold. There's a sensitivity to the moment that you have, and say, yeah, and you're absolutely right. But if you can bring in that touch of compassion, it will have a profound effect. There'll be less energy in that next moment. There'll be less authority to these things that are being made up. Because when you are compassionate with somebody in their suffering, even though they're doing it to themselves, you are giving them something that they may never have gotten in their life, and that is a safe space, an uncondemning space, a non-judgmental space. And in that space, that message of safety, of compassion, of forgiveness, of it's okay, has a profound effect on that capacity to simply let go of these things that we hold on to that cause us misery. How's that for you, Eli? Sophie, why does self-love and care seem so difficult to live? Is there an inherited resistance to the system to identify with truth? It appears to be such a struggle to know who I am after many years. Okay. Can approach this in a variety of ways. Who's telling you you're struggling? Who is that voice? The one that says, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to live with? Why is there so much resistance? I've got all this resistance. I've got to get rid of this resistance. I got to stop resisting, and then resisting. I'm going to resisting, and yeah. Stop for a second. Just take a big step back. Is not all of this, the feeling of resistance, the feeling of identification, all the thoughts that say it's hard to identify with truth. It's been such a struggle over all these years. Isn't all of that being seen by the very thing you're seeking? Isn't that consciousness the awareness that is aware of all of this stuff? Now that cuts right through the whole thing. We can go through step by step, and if I need to, I will, and say, well, it's difficult to live because of the sense of identification, identified with this and that, but we could just cut right to the chase, and I think you can get it. I'm pretty sure you can. Just cut right to the chase. What is it that's aware of everything that you've just said right now? And does that find it difficult for self-love and self-care? Does that find it difficult to live the truth? Does it find that this resistance is overwhelming and a struggle? Is it struggling? Is it struggling to be aware? Right? Well, that's you. That is the one that you have been looking for. That sense right there. And if you get that, you don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. We don't have to go through any kind of process. You don't need meditation. You don't need inner reconciliation. You don't need any of it if you go right to there. You don't need me. You don't need a teacher. You don't need any of it. Because that is the mother of all Buddhas. That is where all of it comes from. That is Kanzeon, Kanon. That is the goddess of wisdom and love. That is the birthplace of Buddhism. Right there. It's that simple, right? That which is aware of all the other. So we can just basically cut the entire argument off the knees and step back into the pure awareness and go, oh, all of that has just been happening on the screen. I'm the screen. And I'm not going to give it any more importance or significance that I had been. I'm not something in the process of becoming the self. I am the self. That is the actual position from which you are looking. So just let your attention go back there. Bring the attention back there. Right? That's where you always are. Does that help, Sophie? If that's too much, if I've gone too far, just tell me and I will back up and I will go through it. I will go through it step by step. But I just had this feeling that I didn't need to do that with you. I could go right for the juggler. So I did. So tell me if it worked. Tell me if we cut the cord. Katie, family attachments are very challenging when change happens. Empathy can be difficult. Can you please expand on this, GP? Well, family attachments. First off, nobody gets through life without attachments. You know, you fall in love, you're attached. You have a relationship, you're attached. There are people I really love. I'm attached to my children. I'm attached to my friends. I'm attached to my granddaughter. I'm attached to you all, right? First thing we have to do is just stop making such a big deal out of these things. Oh, I've got to be unattached. I've got to be a pure Jedi, right? It's not like that. You simply notice it. But there's an underlying wisdom that emerges. And the underlying wisdom is that, that everything I experience belongs to time and will eventually change and shift and go away. Everything, including family, including this body. You know, this will be gone, right? And the nervous system will adjust, you know. When they're no longer there anymore, it'll adjust, it'll accommodate. There'll be sweet memories, and it's all very good. That is a love that's genuinely free from the clinging, right? The attachments, the interdependency, the love, the familyness of things is fine. It's the grasping of it. It's the taking of a position. When you say empathy can be difficult, it's not at all difficult if you're not taking a position. If there's no position of judgment, then you're empathetic with everybody. You're sensitive. You're more than empathetic. You're compassionate. You're present, right? Without judgment, right? Because you're not taking a position about anything. And even saying, I shouldn't be attached is taking a position, right? Just let go. Let go of it. There's attachment there. There's love there. And at this stage of my development, I can't tell that much difference between the attachment and the love, but so I'm going to let it grow. I'm going to let both of them expand, and the love will eventually become clear, more and more loving, less and less attachment, but more and more intimacy, right? Which is really strange to think that the less attachment there is, and I don't mean disattachment. I don't mean indifference. I simply mean the wise recognition that nothing is as we think it is, and everything is in a constant state of shifting. So the person that I thought somebody else was yesterday, they're not today. So I don't need to be attached even to yesterday. I don't have to be attached to a second ago because they're not there anymore. Something new is arriving. Consciousness is forever fresh. It never gets stale, right? It never goes, ooh, what's that? Consciousness, you stink. It never's like that. It's always fresh. It's always new. It's always the newborn, right? It's a virgin birth constantly, right? So let go of being attached to thinking somebody is the same they were 15 minutes ago. And then you'll just begin to see the extraordinary fluidity and flowingness of life. And then you'll find yourself actually being like the sky. And, clouds come and storms come, or beautiful puffy clouds just pass through, but they don't affect the sky. They don't leave a mark on the sky, right? So you live like that. You live like the sky. Nothing leaves a mark. Right? And so there is love without attachment, but there's not an avoidance of closeness and interdependency and intimacy and relationship. And you might even call it attachment, I mean, you get used to each other. You depend upon each other, right? It can just mature. I really don't like people getting these spiritual ideas. I need to rid myself of all attachment. I have to be free of all thoughts, because it just runs us through the ringer. It isn't like that. It is about seeing your true nature, and from there, everything comes into perspective. Everything becomes what it actually is, and then at that point, you're free. There's no rules. Oh, you should do this. You shouldn't do that. You naturally do what's right. You do what's beautiful. You do what's loving because it's your nature, and you don't need to have these things fostered on yourself. So, just love, and that will lead you through these through the kind of twisted path of. Right, and all the places where you are attached, right? Which is every time you attach, especially about some other person, in your mind, you're holding them. You're holding them hostage in your image of them. Let go of your image. Let them be who they are. Allow them to change before your very eyes. Don't they? Oh, they always do that, right? Well, they may have done it every time up to this time, and they may do it this time, and maybe who cares? There's nothing that mandates that they're going to be the same today as they were yesterday, because the reality is that they're not. So don't let your mind tell you they are. Don't let it tell you you are. Don't tell them that this today is going to be the same as every other day. Right? Wake up in the morning and go, oh, got to do this again. Right? I don't want to do it. Right? That's simply the memory, using the memory to create a day that you don't actually want to be in, assuming that it is the same as yesterday. It's not. It's a virgin birth. Does that help, Katie? Eli says, yes, beautiful. Good, you got it. Beautiful. Do I say Wow, wow, Pedro? Pedro, I can say. Well, if being is truth, is there actually anything false in the universe? No, there isn't. Nothing false in the universe. The universe is absolutely pure and perfect. This is being. Yeah. Our ideas about the universe are false. The universe isn't. we have imagined. It is an imaginary image of the universe and yourself in it. And that is false, right? It isn't real in the sense that it is not objective. It's not an absolute truth. It's real though because you believe in it and therefore you experience it, right? So, I could say Bugs Bunny isn't real. Bugs Bunny's false. But what are we talking about, right? I say Bugs Bunny, you know exactly who I'm talking about, right? So is he real? No. Is he unreal? No. That's why Buddha would use such mysterious sounding things like it both exists and does not exist. It does not exist as an entity separate from the one perceiving it. When you think it is, you then think of yourself as this object in the universe. But when you see it for what it is, you see that the universe is within you. And now you actually see it for the way it really is. When you see things as they are, that's what's called nirvana. When you are believing it to be something that it isn't, that's called samsara. It's talking about the same thing, right? But your image of it is just a projection of the mind, and therefore does not qualify for truth, because truth is not a projection. It's what is. And so the idea of the universe is simply a projection of the mind. And it's fine. You can have that projection that's without suffering, without inconvenience, without any of that. But it's not the reality. It is simply this constantly changing kaleidoscope of experience. The moment I think that this kaleidoscope is something that exists independent of my perception of it, I have now created a false universe. I've created something that exists only in the mind. And as long as I know it's only in the mind, it's no big deal. It's not false. Only when I believe it to be an objective thing does it become false. Now it's not real. As an image in the mind, it is real. Is that clear? It's very subtle stuff. Very, very subtle stuff. So thanks for that. Thanks for that question. How do I pronounce your name though? I'm just going to say Joe. Yeah, the Portuguese language is. I think it's Portuguese. A little thing on the ow sound. Anyway, enough of my linguistic attempts. Sorry, Bogdan. Sorry, Kelowna, British Columbia. Well, he's talking to some. Sorry. Oh, retracted some. Okay, well, Eli. I am like a walking safe space. Yes, you are. When you know you are. And when you know you are, you will actually be that safe space. Because that is what you are. As long as it's free, as long as it's empty, as long as you're not taking a position. If you're not in a position, you're not judging. If you're not judging, you're safe. People open up to you. Complete strangers will open up to you. It happens to me all the time. Because I'm safe. And people, they're craving some place where they can just be themselves for a minute and don't have to be putting on the act. Alessandra, would you please talk about the scene of Jesus and the alabaster jar, specifically about apostles complained about the expensive perfume being wasted, And his reply, you'll always have the poor with you. I think in that particular paragraph, there's a lot of different ways to do that particular story. There's a lot of different ways that you can see it. But there was a graspingness, a possessiveness about this expensive oil. Well, to Christ, it was just something to be used, and he used it in the most loving and compassionate way. And then he had to rebuke the disciples for misinterpreting it, because of course, first off, all of the disciples of Christ and Christ were not wealthy people. He was a carpenter. They were fishermen. I mean, the wealthiest guy on the lot was Judas, who was, the tax collector, which is not a well-liked character, even today, right? And so all of them, fishermen, they're very simple people of the earth. And so it's kind of natural for them to go, there's this expensive stuff and we don't have any money. I mean, people are giving us food. That's the only way that we don't have it. What do I... And he just kind of like put that entire thing aside. He says, you know what? There's always going to be poor. There's always going to be those in need. He wasn't promoting wastefulness, but he wasn't wasting it. The disciples said, we sell that, make a lot of money, and we can help a lot more poor. Right? They were seeing the poor as people simply in need of money. Jesus was seeing them in terms of people who needed to know God. They needed to know who they were. And so just giving them a bunch of money would help them, for sure. Like you give some money to somebody on the street, right? Or a friend. But that's not what we need. That poor will always be here. What we want to truly address is the root of poverty, which is the egoic mind. And you can't do enough for the egoic mind. It's insatiable. That's the nature of it. So the poor, it's kind of a strange thing to him say you're always going to have the poor. He was trying to take the attention off of just the mere mechanics of giving to the poor. Say, well, that's always going to. You're never going to have enough to eradicate that. Okay? So put your attention on that which is truly valuable, and put your attention on what it is that the poor actually need. And it also brings to mind his famous Sermon on the Mount, where he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." He emphasized that kind of poverty. And what's that poverty? What's the poor in spirit? It means that you are, as far as the world is concerned, there's not a lot to you, right? You are poor in egoic attachments. You are poor in reliance on physical objects and circumstances and stuff and wealth. That is poor in spirit. It doesn't mean, poor in lacking spirituality. That you are not invested in the world. Right? As far as the world is concerned, you don't have much. And they didn't. Right? And when Siddhartha left and became Buddha, he left all of that behind. He said it wasn't the answer. And he became genuinely poor, had nothing. Right? He saw that was not the answer. There was no solution to suffering in the wealth that he had enjoyed. and he left it behind. As Christ said to the mannequins, "Come, sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and come and follow me." Right? I did not understand what he meant. He was seeing it in the same way that the apostles were, and he wanted to hold on to his stuff, and they were trying to hold on to that. I kind of suspect that a little of that wasn't just about, oh, we could sell it and give it to the poor. We could sell it and have a decent meal. I think there may have been a little bit of themselves in there as well. So I hope that's a satisfying answer for you, Alessandra. It's a good pointer. I know I'm not really nailing it. I can always feel that. So I would invite you to take that question into your heart. What did he actually mean? Because when somebody of the caliber of Christ is speaking, these are eternal words, okay? It's also questionable whether he actually said that or not. A friend of mine gave me this wonderful book called What Jesus Said, which is an incredibly scholarly book that they just scoured through all of the actual original writings, whatever they had, to try to determine, of all the things that in the Bible, what did he actually say? And there are different categories of what was, they were all certain he really did say it. There was likely he said it. It sounded like something he could say. Then there was, it doesn't sound likely he did. And then other parts that it said he absolutely did not say that. Of all the things that he said, that he is credited with saying in the New Testament, according to these guys, only 13% of it did he actually say. So you kind of have to focus in on what this great sage was really trying to convey. So I think I'll leave it at that. Eli says, okay, one more question. No more questions for you, Eli. That's it. No, all right, one more. When I have my eyes open, it's impossibly easy to be I am abiding. But when I lose my eyes, I lose it like I just get assaulted by thoughts. Why is it that I lose that peace, that silence every time I close my eyes? Oh, I think you mean close your eyes. When they're, well, when you close your eyes, right, pay attention to what's happening, right? If I close my eyes, then, for most people when they close their eyes, there's a certain reduction in activity simply because so much of we get so much information through our eyes. But if you close your eyes and there's a lot of activity, all you're doing is when you shut out this, you're seeing the actual activity of your mind and how active it actually is. Right? Great. So, are you your mind, or are you that which is aware of the mind? And clearly you're aware of the mind. It's coming and going and you're watching it, right? So, you, the watcher of the mind, are you getting assaulted? Are you losing that peace? Or are you that peace that has just simply believed the thought, my peace has gone, which is just an experience that peace is having. You can't lose what you are. You can believe lots of things about you that aren't true, but you cannot actually lose or be anything other than what you are. You can't. So all we're doing is looking and looking and looking and looking. We are just probing. We're becoming adept at distinguishing the perceptions of our own minds. We are seeing this activity and simultaneously seeing that we are aware of that activity. And which means we're not lost in what's happening. We are simultaneously aware of what's happening and aware of ourselves being aware of it. And that which is aware of it, of all sorts of activity, is itself not active. that which is aware of a disturbance, is itself not disturbed. Just like there can be a thunderstorm in the sky is not perturbed. And when the thunderstorm passes, it leaves no trace in the sky. A galaxy can explode, and it leaves no trace in space. No trace in space. That's like a meme. Is that clear? None of this affects you unless you think it does. And so even the thought that says, every time I close my eyes, I lose it. Why do you believe that thought? Really? Who told you that was true? Why do you believe these patterns of thought? Why do you believe your mind? To quote Wu Hasin, he said, if the village idiot calls you stupid, do you pay much attention to it? Right? Why do you listen to your mind? We've just become conditioned to believe that these thoughts in our heads are our voice. It's not. That is the robot. It is programmed response. That's the egoic mind. That is just the patterns of thought. You are not that voice. You are the silence in which the voice appears. You are not a thing. Tom. Hi from Poland. I usually am not logged in, but always listening to you, GP. Well, I'm glad you're here then today, Tom. And another person from Poland. God, I love this. I love this. I've seen a dramatic increase in people from Eastern Europe. Poland, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Slovenia, Russia. I know that my teacher Muji has an enormous following in Russia. He's very, very popular there. There's just an awakening happening in that part of the world, where it's gotten really kind of dulled in this part of the world, especially the United States. Yeah, the United States is just so steeped in materialism that it doesn't know its ass from page 8. Europe is not as bad, for sure. It has maintained some kind of dignity and artistry and the like, but the U.S. is just sunk into utter decadence. It's not long for this world, actually. Something else is coming along very soon. Sophie says, thank you. You brought many tears. I do know the purity of that. I think there's just a need to be held in that compassion and caring reflection. Very grateful. Yeah. I'm very grateful too, Sophie. Yeah, we all need, the experience. Well, we're very specific, we're very articulate, we're very, very precise about how we say things and how we point, and use language. It's got to hit the heart. We all need to feel loved. We need to feel valued. We need to feel seen. So it's not just a head thing. It's very much a visceral thing. It touches the mind, the body, and the spirit, and the emotional centers as well. It's bigger than those, but it liberates all of those. It touches all of those. So holding the space of compassionate presence without judgment, without taking a position, just letting things be the way they are, let them unfold in their own good time. It's the most caring, compassionate space you can possibly create, and that is the environment in which the deep awakening takes place, the awakening that is in the heart. So, yo amo. It's Portuguese. It's pronounced yo amo. It's the Portuguese equivalent of John. Thank you. Thank you. Jo amo. Beautiful. I try. Tom, Eva. A little message in Polish between our Polish citizens here. Wonderful. Let me say, jo amo. Pedro Cardosa. But although our images of the universe create a false reality to which we react, the images themselves are not false. If they were false, they wouldn't manifest. They're false if you regard them as being objective. See, the thing is, we get this idea about things. This thing is, and then we think my thought about it is what it actually is, and it isn't. And if you go even more deeply into it, one of the key things we believe about the objects we perceive is that they exist independently of my perception of them. That is the big mistake. That's what Buddha referred to in the second Bodhisattva practice, when he says, perceiving the non-existence of external existence. In other words, it's all mind. It's all a projection of the mind. So the object does not exist separate from the perceiving of it. The perceiving and the object, the perceived and the perceiving are one. So now, if I believe that it exists independently, I have created a false universe. There is no, it does not exist independently. It does exist as an image in the mind giving expression to consciousness. Right? Is that clear? So it's not false, but it's not true. It doesn't exist objectively, it exists subjectively. So therefore, it is simply consciousness aware of itself. It is not consciousness aware of something outside of itself. Am I getting it clear? So by reacting to them, we are reacting to the truth already. So how do they fabricate illusions? They don't fabricate illusions. The only illusion is that what you are perceiving exists independently from you. That's it. That is the difference between nirvana and samsara. That's the difference between awake and asleep. It's the difference between ignorance and enlightenment. It's only that. Perceiving the non-existence of external existence. In that moment, everything becomes real and vital and alive and liberated, and everything in the universe now comes home, comes right back to you, comes right back to the self, comes right back to the nature of creation. Nature of creation is conscious awareness. It's awareness aware of itself. And that self-image of pure consciousness is the universe. We simply need to rid ourselves of the belief that the universe exists independently from me. And that's it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more to this whole thing. So that's the false reality. Not the thing, not the experience, just the idea that it exists independently from me. Ponder that. Really take that deeply into your heart. And you'll find that the entire tendency of human thought is that which I perceive exists independently from me. That's science, religion, economics, everything is based on that assumption. I invite you to. Buddha said that ain't true. Muji says it isn't true. Christ demonstrated that it wasn't true. Right? This is what the sages have been saying forever. Okay. Billy Boy, thanks so much. You're always so clear and articulate. I know. It's me too. But I still love how you inspire me. Good. We're in it together. Yeah. Because you got to remember that the words that are coming out of me are coming because they've been invoked by you. I don't sit and talk to myself like this. I'm in the shower. No, it's just quiet, right? So so we're in this together. We are together exploring. That's satsang, communion with the truth. You and I are communing together with the truth. Bogdan, I love the clarity of your teachings. It's a special gift you have. I encourage my now adult children to listen to you too. Thank you for making yourself available. Thank you, Bogdan. Great, yeah. Really, we should encourage our children towards we should inspire in them a deep curiosity for the best, for the highest, for the purest, for the most truthful. And of course, we do that by simply doing it ourselves. be that, and they will inevitably, even if they're full grown, and you didn't do that, up to like the last couple of days of your life, it's still going to have an impact. I'm happy to be available, by the way. This is my favorite thing to do. I teach some other classes and the like, but this is what I always look forward to. Teaching the classes is great. It's like, subtlety, and, you got to really be clear about things. That kind of teaching I love, but this is pure joy for me. Ava says, GP, sorry, it's not to you now. And no, I knew that. In Polish the time, maybe he needs contact. No, it's fine. I know it wasn't to me. I mean, I don't get Polish at all, and it's okay if you have some exchanges between yourselves here. It's quite all right, right? Oftentimes we can find. We're forming a sangha. We're forming a community, and communities help each other. So, form community, make friends. I mean, we are in this together. Antonio says, "Hi GP, I love you. Do you know Rupert Spira?" Not personally. I've not met. Well, I talked to him once online during one of his events, but I do know his work, and he's one of the handful of teachers that I recommend. I find his message true and heartfelt, not very precise and very smart, but also very much of the heart. He's a bit of a Sufi, He's got that kind of romantic. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just there's just a lot of tenderness and heart. Yeah, I have a real tough time with the kind of the Advaita cliches. There's nobody here. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to know. There's nothing you're going to get from this. It's true, kind of, but then again, it's quite misleading. So there's a handful of teachers, and Rupert is one of those. I hope to meet him in person someday. It would be really wonderful. Mark C. Hey GP, your teachings have made a marked, no pun intended, difference. Wanted to pick up on your thought about the fate of the USA and what will replace what we have, and I agree, it's not sustainable. I'm not 100% sure. I can't tell you what form it's going to take. All I know that the current value system is collapsing and it's unsustainable. As we've seen, we know that this level of consumption just isn't sustainable. Just endless profit, not sustainable. Endless war, not sustainable. We'll eventually just burn everything out, or it's got to stop. And I think it's going to stop. But it's more than just that. Remember, this is what's going on in the world today is a state of consciousness that has been evolving for 12,000 years, ever since we just became more agriculture and the invention of cities, and then and empire and all of the stuff that happened after that. I mean, there were not empires before that, the creation of cities and structure and civilization and the like has brought with it certain attitudes and ideas and values about possessions and about ownership and about wealth and about status. So the entire thing is burning itself out. We are headed into a completely new level of consciousness. We will look back on us now, 100 years from now, with as much curiosity as we look on Neanderthals. There is a shift coming, a caterpillar into a butterfly shift. So it's not possible for anybody to predict what it's going to look like any more than the caterpillar can possibly predict the arrival of a butterfly. But that is what's happening. And, the U.S. has just completely fallen into the pure greed and possessiveness, which is unsustainable. And it is completely succumbed to the seduction of the egoic mind, to the point where it can't even tell anymore what's true and what isn't. That's not universally true. There's plenty of awake people in the United States. There's plenty of and when I see that, I see these pockets of light. I recognize that there is an undercurrent, that what's actually fomenting all of this stuff at the top that we see as corruption and greed and avarice and war and all of that is actually this new expansion, this new dimension of consciousness that is pushing to the surface and pushing everything out of its way as it does. That to me is what is happening. I don't know what it's going to look like finally. When the tectonic plates in the world hit, and that all that pressure started pushing up. We had no idea what it was going to do on the surface, right? We end up with the Himalayas and Mount Everest. So when that forces are just pushing themselves out, we don't know what it's going to look like when it gets up here. But I know that force is there. I'm an example of it. I'm doing this because it arose in me. It's arising in you. That's why you're here. We're both contributing to this expanding consciousness, and we are the beneficiaries of it. I mean, I didn't start this, right? Nobody started it. This was the destiny of consciousness. So, okay. You amo. Ah, that's right. You amo. Thanks, GP. I really appreciate the depth of your answers. As my last question, I'd like to know, what do you think about a purely logical reasoning to achieve non-dual understanding? Beautiful, beautiful question. Well, you can't get to the understanding just through reasoning, but you can't get to it just through feeling. So when you are reasoning, notice the clarity of the pointers I'm offering are simply because it's very precise, right? And when I'm describing something, I do it with as much precision as I can possibly muster, every possible way that I can to give it the closest meaning to the truth that I can possibly give it. But at the same time, simultaneously, if there's not a love behind it, if there's not a compassionate, if there's not a willingness to be present with even the deepest pain, well, then, I think Paul put it well. He said, if I had the tongues of angels and speak with gods and men, but have not love, I'm but a tinkling cymbal or sounding brass. It's love that animates the reasoning, right? Yes, you do need, absolutely. I'm a stickler for precision in terms of reasoning, and it is the Vedantic path. The path of Advaita is that purity, that absolute precision, where you're not letting anything stand that is obviously phenomenal. You are not assigning the status of objective truth to that which is just an appearance. But the other side of it, which is Tantra, which is the living of it, the embodiment of it, the marinating in it, as Muji always likes to say. It is every time you see something that's true, you are going to feel you may feel some kind of resistance or reaction to it. That doesn't mean your truth is incomplete. It simply means that it's got to settle in. It's got to settle into the heart. It's got to just kind of permeate the entire thing until the entire thing is nothing but that pure love. And then mind and heart unify. Wisdom and compassion fold into each other. They become one. And so, the word for heart the symbol for heart and the symbol for mind in the Chinese symbols is the same symbol. And so the precision without compassion is harsh. That's how you get the invited doublespeak, because it's a withdrawing from humanity, whereas the genuine insight is a complete embracing of humanity, but it's just not ignorant embrace. It's no longer ignorant about what things are. It is completely and totally self-aware, and in that self-awareness there is nothing but love. Right? It is not empty in the sense that it's just gold. It is absolutely filled with love. So, Remington says, no questions today, just going with the flow. Wonderful. Keep flowing, Remy. Lisa, why is there so much suffering for some people in this world, but not much suffering for others? Why does it seem some people live a good life, others live a lot of suffering? It's such a big question, and one that I want to answer with a lot of heart, because it's hard to look at the amount of completely needless, unnecessary, and an insane amount of suffering that we are inflicting on each other. And it is simply the egoic mind. It's the attachment to stuff. It's the nature of greed and hatred and all of those things. But suffering is in the world because of our identification with the egoic mind. Suffering ends with the identification with the ego. Suffering just ends. What we're simply seeing is that magnification that is in each one of us. Everyone has felt it. I mean, there's probably the one thing more universal to every human being's experience than love is suffering. That's why people love the blues, right? Suffering is so primary in the human experience. It seems to be almost built in. And of course, that's what this kind of inquiry, that's what it needs to explore. You know, I had a natural inclination towards spiritual things, a natural curiosity about it. Later, when I was younger, I didn't. I noticed some things. I noticed a few things. I had some psychic experiences and things like that. I didn't give a shit about it. But the more I became aware of the suffering I was in, and it happened much later. Like every kid, I'd suppressed it. This was the family I grew up in. Like everybody else, it seemed really normal. My mother's illness seemed normal to me. This is the way it was. I had no idea how much pain I was in until later. I got to be a teenager, and things just started going to hell in a handbasket. So I have to say that the reason I'm sitting here today talking to you, that I've persisted over these years, is because the discovery of the truth was not just an intellectual curiosity. I needed a way out of suffering. My suffering was intense. I needed a way out. So that the curiosity about the truth, the drive to find the truth, was more than just a nice idea. It became a matter of a drowning man, wanting to keep his head above water. If you approach the truth like that, not just an intellectual curiosity, not like a philosophy, not like something you can know and be proud of, but as the end of suffering, you'll make very quick headway towards truth. Remember, that's what drove the Buddha. It was not an intellectual curiosity. He wasn't the least bit interested in any of that kind of stuff. He was a prince. He had a lot of money. He was doing everything he wanted. When he first actually really saw and felt suffering, that's what he went after. He went, I'm going to find the cure to suffering. When he sat down, he didn't say to sit down until I attain enlightenment. I am going to sit here until I find the cure for suffering. And it was, if people would ask him a philosophical question, he would either not answer them, and they get really pissed off, and he just wouldn't say anything, or he would just say, it's completely irrelevant. I'm only interested in the alleviation of suffering. And he found that at the essence of suffering was the false sense of self. That to eliminate suffering from the world, you must eliminate the sufferer. We cannot eliminate suffering simply by manipulating circumstances and making them more to our liking, because they will just fall apart. We have to address where they're really coming from, the suffer. And so how do you eliminate suffering from the world? Well, first you must eliminate it from you. Simple as that. You must first eliminate it from you. You're on the airplane, put on your mask first. Then you can help others. Eliminate it from you. That doesn't mean you turn a blind eye. It doesn't mean you don't help. It doesn't mean you're not compassionate. It just means that you need to find the way out of your suffering, and then you can help somebody else out of theirs. And you will want to. The matter of fact, to become enlightened, to save all beings from suffering, is the Mahayana. That's the highest vehicle. It's not, I'm trying to just alleviate my own suffering. I'm seeking enlightenment for the benefit of all humanity. You go up the mountain for yourself, you come down the mountain for others. I am seeking enlightenment for all beings. And that means, enlightenment simply means the seeing through of the illusion of a separate self. So there is no more sufferer. And then life can just be whatever life is. It can go in any direction it needs to go. It doesn't matter, because there's nobody there to suffer. And of course, that eliminates, if there's nobody there, then there's no one to get greedy. There's no need for greed, right? Because there's no sense of being without. There's no need for hate, because there's no one to hate. Hope this is making sense. Ava says, without first understanding, I would also not understand you. It's beautiful. So many ways to truth, and they complement each other. Yeah, it is. It's very true. The reason you can understand it, it's not that you're understanding me. You're recognizing it. Something in you says, yes, that's true. That's it. That thing that says, yes, that's true, is truth. What else recognizes the truth but truth? A lie can't recognize the truth. Timmy. Hi, Timmy. Hello, GP. Thank you for your course. It's really helpful. Oh, glad you're enjoying it. Remington, it's so much better when you're just cool with circumstances. You can't even fix it when you're in a defensive posture. No, you can't. You can't see clearly enough to do anything. You can't make repairs. Sometimes things do need to be adjusted. But if you're in fighting stance, you can't make anything work. You can't. There's no creative energy. It's like when you get a cold, right? All the energy goes to fighting the cold. You can't do much. You just kind of lay there. So we are oftentimes, most of the time actually, in a defensive posture, which means there's not a lot of energy left for creativity and reason and compassion and presence, because the energy's stuck here. People actually look like they're holding on to suffering when they're angry. Yes, the ego wants to hold on to its position. That's simple. You want to hold your position, you want to be happy. You want to be right, or you want to be happy. It's really not a hard choice. They're crouched over their where their posture looks like they're wanting something to keep. Yeah, they want to hold on to it. Well, they feel wronged, right? But remember, it's part of the defensive mechanism. We just get stuck in it. It's because we've mistaken the conditioned patterns of our nervous system for ourselves. We have projected a sense of self on that which is just a pattern of energy. Lisa says, thank you very much. Ava says, yes, recognizing. Well, okay. I think that brings it to a close. I think I've cleared the queue of questions, and about time to kind of mosey on to the next phase of your day or your night or your morning or whatever it is. I'm not exactly sure where you are in the world. For me, I'm on to whatever comes next, and I'm not quite even sure what that is. Ah, yes, it's a phone call. I have a nice conversation with a dear one. And then I spend time with the family, and I will not be a teacher. My granddaughter does not see me as a teacher. I am just Baba. I'm her Baba. So thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. I am so delighted that you come, and let yourself be brought back to the self. Because, as Mr. Gadada says, having never left the house, you're asking for the way home. You are already what you actually are. I mean, that's self-evident. You already are the self. You just need to drop all of the places where you have been believing you're not.